Alright, welcome back, Generals, to another Let's Fix Generals 0 Hour to make the best game ever. Good. I think we'll do some reviewing. What is this? The current way that music plays in the background depends on time. So if we were to speed up the game, it would change too quickly. The sad music plays way too often. Oops. CPU AI skirmish. I think that CPU players need a revamp. They're a bit too easy to defeat. These manual clues should not be necessary. Always.h is generally meant to be included always, as the name implies. I suggest check why this is not included. Okay, what is this? This change causes units who die via poison status to yield experience to the poison status source. Okay, fair enough. The workaround was to make weapon projectile dummies doing the damage. Dragon tank power also doesn't give experience. Poison source. If not, retake comparable CSC. Poison source. This needs to be configurable with an ini setting. With an ini setting at the appropriate place. Will jump fences again. Poisoned behavior. Poisoned behavior module data. Let me see that. Poison duration. Veteran same. Same. I was hoping that there's maybe already some other setting which says that we gain veterancy. Let me search for owner. Flip owner after unpacking. I'm trying to find an appropriate name for this. I think let's search for passenger. Passengers allowed to fire. Let's search for XP. Experience. Experience sync. I get the EXP for things that my turret friend kills. Experience sync for Rider. Let's search for experience. There's also something when Lotus is hacking vehicles, you can also get experience. Okay, but this one is an option. Let me write that down. Experience sync. Let me search for vehicle. Vehicle hack. Here. No? Here, award XP for triggering. Okay, so there's that. Award XP. Experience sync for Rider. Let's search for experience sync. I get the EXP for things my turret friend kills. Overlord contain. For Rider. Poisoned behavior. Every this many milliseconds, I will retake the poison damage dealt. Poison damage, poison duration. Poison behavior. This needs to be configurable. In poisoned behavior, ini. Okay, how would we call this setting? Experience sync. Experience sync. What XP? Let me search for experience sync. Experience. Let me open documents. Ini. Let me search for XP. Search for XP uppercase. XP scalar. What XP? Let's search for experience. Okay, that's the only things I find. Reference fields. Otherwise, this is a controversial change that affects all derivatives. Derivatives. All products. when it is configurable, when it is opt-in in any, then we also do not need but we would need that. That is, unless community can already decide that this bug fix, that this change is desirable. Oh, that's cool. Add replay checking to generals to ensure changes are retake compatible. Ah, you opened a task. I thought you opened already an implementation for this. Find generals replays, add replay check. Before I clicked, I thought thought this was a pull request. There was something else merged recently. Let me see in a commit history. Here, this one. Oh, this one. Game code. This change allows observers to select the next idle worker of the currently viewed player. Allows observers to select the next idle worker. Why? Okay. For consistency, maybe use that. why? Why would the observer select the next idle worker? This looks like an unrelated change. What is the use case for this? Why would I observer select an idle worker? To find a worker? Yeah, I don't understand. Like, if I was observing, why would I care for this button? When I select a player, I don't care for idle workers. I just look at the player. Like, maybe what would be interesting is to see, okay, does he still have a worker unit, right? Does he still have a dozer? But if the dozer is busy, then the button won't show me that info. Yeah, so I'm not really sure about this design. I'm not opposed to it, but I also don't understand. Okay. Okay, that was simply enough. Prevent unit attachments being visible through fog after exiting a tunnel network. Right, I've seen this. Add or remove object from world. Remove from contain. What is this function? Add. Else remove. Remove from contain. Add or remove object from world. I would say set that to major. Major. Remove from contain. Add to contain lists. What I'm a bit so what I see here is that if I look at this remove from contain, I would expect that there is this call in here, that here it would remove it, right? But it doesn't do that, so I wonder how that works. Tunnel contain. Let me disable generals. Good. So regarding this function, it calls this tunnel tracker. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Tunnel system. So tunnel system returns tunnel tracker. Let me put a breakpoint here. This displacement looks suspicious. Looks suspicious because there is no counterpart in the add to contain list function. remove from contain. On removing, on selling, on selling, yeah. By the way, let's go to main branch. Okay, delete that. All right, good. Then let's compile again. Okay, so I would like to see what happens. Oh, I would like to see what happens in the call stack when we add something into the tunnel. Like, when does this object get removed from the world? It must be somewhere. Oh boy. Oh boy. Chile. Okay. Okay, and then we put this guy in there and we get a hit. Good. So we have on collide, yeah. Add to contain. Why is this called other? Other objects. Okay, the passenger. Add to contain. Here. So here we have this, and do we have another call to this? Here. Yeah, so I think this needs another look. The counterpart appears to be at add to contain. Dot 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 dot. Actually, let me copy that from code. Code. Let me search for this comment. Here. No. How do we search? Why is the search so buggy? Jesus Christ. Open cut. Okay, so I can't search for a comment like that. Let me search for this here. There we go. So this is line 337 here. So from here to here. Copy permalink. There we go. Oh boy. is not quite right. Okay, next. Why not, or even anyone would think this is desirable? What benefit is there to differentiating behavior between surrender and disconnect? If a setting is desired for what happens to an ally as it's on the feed, it should apply to all cases and not differ between exit, surrender, or disconnect. I don't think it's worth giving any weight to whether EA designed it this way, considering we can see an unused alternative implementation in relay commands to commandless with the assets being transferred. Yeah, I mean, is it ever desirable that a teammate should not get assets on disconnect? A potential abuse from there is a there is a tangible difference between surrendering, between transferring assets there is a tangible difference between transferring assets on exits and on disconnects. the first is a conscious choice by the player. The second is likely an accident. On, let's say, surrender. The first is a conscious choice by the player. The second is likely an accident. Players, teammates can vote. Teammates can vote their teammates and opponents can vote a player out. Historically, teammates never voted. Rarely. Historically, teammates were not encouraged to vote out the teammates. But with this change, teammates could be encouraged to vote out the teammate fast. For example, if the if the player is not a good player and the teammates want to get hands on his stuff, I think this change will have some impacts on user behavior in the disconnect screen. I misspelled transferring. Yeah, so I don't think it's an innocent change. It will have a consequence. I mean, it's good in some way, but it could be bad in other ways. Like, I think it's very likely that if you have like a 3 versus 3 and one of the teammates is bad and he's counting down for like 5 seconds and then everyone is fast to click on vote and the opponents, they will be eager to vote someone out. Well, unless they figure that, oh, leave the bad player in, right? And then the bad player could be voted out fast, even though maybe he would have come back. But it was not his choice to surrender his army. The choice was made for him. So I don't know, but maybe it's fine because maybe he surrendered his right on his stuff when he counted down for 5 seconds. I don't know. To me, it looks reasonable to have this configurable. So I don't know. Okay, what's the time? 1 hour 11. It feels like 4 hours. Okay. Okay, what is this? That sounds good, yeah. In my opinion, the CI pipeline should be the single source of truth for versioning. This aligns with what's considered best practice in the literature. Continuous delivery, Humble and Farley. Version numbers should reflect intentional release decisions, while commit hashes and build metadata are generated automatically. CI is a natural place to bring those together. If we allow local builds to stamp arbitrary versions, state hash, we risk drift. The same code might exist under multiple versions, depending on who built it. This is an open source project, so anyone with the will be able to generate any kind of version information in the game client as he likes. Anyone will be able to generate any version information in the game client as he likes. So even if we generate a version in CI, someone can fake it locally. We currently built version information locally with a mix of product name, Git author, commits, commit counts, and commit counts. From CI, you can set a product name, product version, and product author, which is different from what is auto-generated. Example: locally generated committee patch. How does it currently look? Let me see. So it says committee patch 752 by let's take any name, Mauler, yeah. And then we can have a CI generated committee patch version, committee patch version 0.752, for example. So this would be a major version, a minor version. By the super hackers. Meaning 0 major, 1 minor, 752 commit counts. Major product version, minor product version, commit counts. Someone can replicate it locally. let's say major product version equals 0 equals 1, commit count equals 752. Okay. Okay. Then let's see what else we need to review. Okay, this one, fix availability, scale fonts. Okay, let's look at this again. Okay, let's read through this here. Okay, this change addresses issues with how the run-ahead logic calculated the number of logic frames the local client can progress before receiving data in an online or network game. Calculated the number of logic frames the local client can progress before receiving data. Number of logic frames. If the calculated run-ahead is not correct for the current network latency, it can introduce stutter and game slowdowns. This is because to the client needing to wait for new commands before progressing the simulation. The original run-ahead logic had two fundamental flaws in its calculation that can introduce stutter. even when the network latency is good. The maximum latency evaluation was incorrect. Originally, they used the average of the two highest latencies. The two highest latencies to calculate the maximum latency. The issue with this is that you are averaging two values which are already averages. Averaging two values which are already averages. This can result in a latency value lower than the actual highest latency. The average of the two highest latencies to calculate the maximum latency. But they added it. Hold on. Is that true? But this one is additive. It adds two latencies. It doesn't take an average. Yeah, you are averaging two values which are already averages. This can result in the latency value lower than the actual highest. To lower than. Okay, so if this was a case, I agree that would be fishy, but that's not what is happening here in this code, or is it? Let me read that again. So it goes through all the players. If the player is connected, if the latency averages of that player is not 0, and if the average is larger than this one, then we assign that to that and that. Okay, so max. It collects the two highest latencies and then it adds them together. It takes the two highest latencies and then adds them together. The change description says but this is not what is happening here. This function collects the two highest latencies and adds them together. So this so the old get maximum latency is higher than the new max lat. Yeah, so I don't see how this is true. This is not averaging, unless I misread that. Let me look at this again. But to me, it looks like it collects the first one, the first highest average, and then it saves it here. And then if it finds another one, if it finds one that is higher than the second highest latency, then it updates that. Yeah. So this implementation is correct for collecting the two highest latencies. This works for 2-player games because the latency for the packet router is always 0. I don't know what that means. Latency for the packet router. Yeah, so I'm confused by this change, at least down here. Okay, let's read on. This can result in a situation where the run-ahead value is calculated to a lower than required value. Let me also append that to the quote. The run-ahead calculation needed to round up to the next whole integer. The run-ahead calculation needed to round up to the next whole integer instead of implicitly flooring the value when casting. The run-ahead calculation needed to round up to the next whole integer instead of implicitly flooring the value. Needed to round up to the next whole integer. Implicitly flooring. Aha. Okay. So he wants to round up something instead of flooring it when casting it from float to integer. Okay. This issue introduced the largest amount of stutter in a game. With the original calculation, when the latency is between two run-ahead values, okay, it would always truncate to the lowest value, which would result in the latency following the run-ahead. What does that mean? Which would result in the latency following the run-ahead. When the original calculation, when the latency is between two run-ahead values, it would always truncate to the lowest value. Which would result in the latency following the run-ahead. This slowly introduces more stutter as the latency approaches the next run-ahead threshold. More stutter. To correct this, the run-ahead should have been rounded up to the next integer value, so the number of logic frames always exceeds the latency. Okay, it kind of makes sense, yeah. 10 frames being 330 versus 310 milliseconds network latency. This implicitly adds a buffering effect to the network latency on top of the additional network slack. Okay, I understand. For the network slack, we now calculate this as part of the latency value instead of the run ahead like in the original code. This then allows the network slack to work as a buffer between the current latency and the calculated run ahead. We now calculate this as part of the latency value. So if the slack is a 10% window, when the latency gets within 10% of the current run ahead, the run ahead will be pushed up to the next run ahead level. There are further optimizations that help with network game performance, but these will be handled in future pulls. Most of these resolve around allowing the run ahead to go below 10 frames, increasing the update frequency of the run ahead, decreasing the number of bins the network latency is calculated over, and reducing the frame batching time. Okay, but that's unrelated. We don't care. Okay, so the rounding issue, let's take a look at this one. Okay, so this one was just a refactor. We already looked at this in another session earlier. This one is just the same as this one here. And this one here was this one. Calculate the run ahead so it always follows the latency. The run ahead should always be rounded up to the next integer value to prevent variations in latency from causing stutter. Should always be rounded up to the next integer value to prevent variations in latency. The network slack pushes the run ahead up to the next value when the latency is within the slack percentage. Okay, let's look at that. The network latency. Real network latency. You run it. Network latency. Latency averages. FPS. Run ahead. Maximum latency divided by 2. Maximum latency. That's why he said it's the average. That's why. Because it divides this by 2. Is this used from anywhere else, though? Get maximum latency. Is this the only place it calls it? Max latency. Nice. Maximum latency. Okay. Um, Okay, so he is not wrong. In regards to this average thingy, it happens here, the averaging. It's odd because here, like we get a different value here. Maximum latency, this one will be different than this one. That's weird. Latency averages. The actual sums, this actually sums the two biggest latencies in the latency averages list. Okay, okay, reading further, I see the averaging at the averaging width divided by 2. But there's this. So the implementation of this function was intended as it is. Get maximum latency. Maximum latency. Okay. Get average latency. Get average latencies. Average latency. was intentional. Set average latency. Average latency. Is this latency the whole latency to all players? Frame metrics. The current average latency. This is used to save calculation time. When a new latency value is received, the old one is subtracted out. The old one is subtracted out. Yeah. Average latency. Time diff. The fuck is that? Latency list. A record of the round trip latencies. A record of the round trip latencies of the frame info packets to the packet router. Values in seconds. A record of the round trip. Okay, round trip means send to this guy and receive a response. Okay. Okay. Okay, I don't see. Oops. I don't see a fault with this. Yeah. So the latency is a round trip latency, if we can trust that description. Yeah. Okay. So and then the average. Why do we have this? Why do we have a list though? Network latency 3 length. What is that? The number of ping history entries. How much is that? $200. Having these default to 0 would be bad. Okay, 200. 200. Okay, I need to study this a bit more. It's not yet clear to me how this all works. Okay, what's the time? Yeah, we are nearing 2 hours. I think I will take a break here. Then I wish you a great day or night. Until next time. Goodbye.